to thank everyone for tuning in to episode 2 of the SSBC digital series. I'm one of the co-founders and co-presidents of the SSBC, and today we have a great episode about navigating careers after COVID-19. We have some great panelists today. We have Chelsea Weiner, who's the talent acquisition manager at BSC Global. Lauren Borst, who's the hiring manager at Wayfair and also a Syracuse sport management alumni. Ryan Howe, who's the manager of campus relations at the Madison Square Garden Company. And Nicole Cost, who's the internship placement coordinator at the sport management program for Syracuse.
It's a long one. It's not as long as Lauren's title, but it's long.
Yeah, and Nicole, I just want to thank you again for always being there for us every step of the way since day one.
You got it.
And with that being said, I'll let you guys get to it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, Ben, and Evan, for having me host today's panelists. I am really excited to talk about this, and like you had mentioned, Lauren and I were actually classmates, so this is very exciting for us. Both Ryan and Chelsea are colleagues of mine, so this is a great experience for me to get to chat with people that I admire and really respect, and then to hopefully give all of you students or young professionals or anybody that's tuning in to just some really good information and maybe some sort of comfort knowing that we're all navigating this together. So first things first, and this is the way I start every interview and the way we start everything, but we'd like to get to know you guys. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves. I'd like to start with Chelsea, if you could go first and tell us your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Chelsea Weiner. As everyone said, I'm the talent acquisition manager at BSC Global, which is home of the Brooklyn Nets, Barclays Center, and recently the New York Liberty. So it's a really exciting time for those of you sports fans who just watched the WNBA draft. We're navigating a lot of different things right now, but in terms of my background, I have a really untraditional background. I've always been a fan of sports and entertainment, but never really saw a path into it because I was a non-traditional athlete. I was an equestrian, and there really isn't like a league office or a team that you can work for. So I never really thought about it. So my career, my background is education. I went to Roger Williams University, and after school, I said, I love the people space, but I'm not really looking to become a teacher right away. So I entered the workforce in a learning and development role in a staffing and outsourcing agency where I was for about 5 years and grew within HR. Within that agency, kind of transitioning from wanting to really be, helping people, guidance counseling, and moving that into the corporate space. So I fell in love with HR that way. And I took a couple risks in my career in terms of, the steps I took from my first role to my second, which ultimately led me to meeting the SVP of HR at BSC Global. She was looking for someone with exactly my background, and it was like the moons aligned, and all of my hard work that I had put in and the goals of wanting to work within sports and an arena came into my lap. And there's so many different things that I could talk about that led me to that point, but I won't put that in the air right now. I'll give my colleagues a chance to talk a little bit about their backgrounds, but at BSC Global, I cover everything from employee experience, talent acquisition, our internship program, and talent development.
Great. That's awesome. I will probably go back and ask you for more information then on that.
Sure.
We'll chat about that a little bit later. But Ryan, would you be the next one up, please?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Ryan Howe. I'm the Campus Relations Manager with MSG. As a corporation, we dabble in a lot of different areas of entertainment. We've got our sports teams, which are the New York Knicks and the Rangers. We also have our production groups like the Rockettes. And then also we have all of our various venues across the country as well. So everything from Madison Square Garden to the Beacon Theater to Radio City Music Hall, to venues in Chicago. And also we have properties out in LA as well. We're building out a studio out there, which we're really excited about. We also have our CLG groups, which are esports teams also, and they're headquartered in LA as well. So we're fortunate enough to be able to work in a lot of different areas within live entertainment and sports specifically. My background was very similar to Chelsea's in the sense that I went to college for grad school in education with the intent of working in higher education, doing student development type of work. And I did that. And I did that for about 4 years, actually. I worked at an art college in San Francisco. And through that and through the power of networking, I was able and fortunate enough to work at Lucasfilm, which, if there's any Star Wars fans out there, it was a really fun role. I actually got to recruit interns, but we called them Jedi. So I got to recruit Jedis for a living, which was kind of a fun thing to say. And so that was my first exposure into running a college internship program. And for me, it was like the best of all worlds because I still got to work with college students and help them on the industry side versus usually helping them on the academic side. So anyway, I was there, and then I went over to Pixar, the animation studio, and I was fortunate enough to lead their college program. And then I had the itch and the desire to move to New York, and been out here for about 3 years now, and specifically with MSG for about 1.5 years. And the one message I would say, and you'll probably hear this come up throughout, is the importance of networking and continuing those professional relationships along the way. And the reason I stress that is because that's part of my story. I was, during my years working at Lucasfilm, I worked with a colleague of mine who later went to MSG. And just through, the professional connections, conversations, check-ins along the way over the years, she circled back with me and said, hey, we've got this opportunity, not sure if you're interested. And so it all sort of came full circle, and have been really grateful for that. And so that's a really important message, is continuing to network and develop those relationships even after you work or partner with someone. So anyway, we could probably talk more about that later, but thanks for joining, or thanks for allowing me to join you all today. So
Absolutely. No, thank you. That's great. And yes, networking. We talk about it all the time at school too. So that's good. It's a great real life thing. And then Lauren, the manager of Technology Experience Change Management.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell us your story. And we both graduated from the sport management program. So walk us through your career and your background. Excited to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be on the panel with both of you, Chelsea and Ryan. I have so many questions for both of you, but I know that's not why I'm here. So I'll try to give you really brief overview of how I went from sport management to what I'm doing now, and what I'm doing now and what that actually means. So 2008, my first job from sport management from Syracuse was with the Boston Bruins. So I moved to Boston to do ticket sales, season tickets, group tickets, and 2008, not a great economic time. So I say I was really lucky to have a job, but I worked really hard to get a job. I spent most of my time on Teamwork Online my senior year, applying for lots of jobs, having lots of phone interviews, and ended up getting a job with the Bruins, which sales, so not my thing. But I did it. I took the Papa Vili advice of get your foot in the door with sales, and he was right. So I did that for just over a year. Like I was saying, economy not great. I ended up getting laid off because we kind of sold ourselves out of jobs. We ran out of ticket inventory, didn't need a lot of salespeople. So that led me to, through networking, I got a job with the Red Sox. I was in customer service, ticket services. Fast forward a couple of years, I was kind of feeling like I was ready to move away from sports. I wasn't really finding, I hadn't found my passion yet. I had different jobs in ticketing and they weren't really quite for me, and I wasn't sure what came next. So I somewhat strategically, somewhat luckily moved to Harvard Athletics in a ticketing role. So my thinking being Harvard is an enormous university. Once I'm in internal transfer, that should be no problem, right? And I did. I was there for 2 years in that role, kind of figuring out what comes next. I really loved working for Harvard. I enjoyed working on the university side of athletics. And I found that my passion was more with people, and human resources was kind of the area I decided to focus on. I had, through a variety of experiences, personally, I wanted to focus on the development of other people, both managers, individuals, organizations. That ultimately led me to human resources. Through networking, I found another role in organization development with an investment firm, which always made me laugh when I would say it, because I was like, as a sport management major, I can't believe I'm working at an investment firm. It still makes me laugh. And then I moved to Wayfair in a learning and development role. So Wayfair, online furniture retailer for all things home. They're based in Boston. So I started working on new hire orientation for Wayfair. Then I worked on manager development. So ran a couple different programs here. And I ultimately moved to our employee tech department. So like information technology or IT. Working with our engineers on how do they roll out tech programs with a lens on the employee. So thinking about, if we're going to roll out a technical program, what are all the things people need to learn in order to properly adopt that? So it's really from the engagement perspective. So long title, but hopefully I put that in a small package. And there's a lot in the 10 years there. So any follow-up questions through this conversation or later, super open to.
That's great. And what I love that I didn't know is that both Ryan and Chelsea, who now work in sport, did not plan that. And Lauren, who wanted the career in sport, now it's kind of like you all have switched roles. Yeah, you followed the path. You said yes and figured it out later. So that's cool. So the first question I have is really for everybody, so we can all take a turn answering it, but how are you personally, and then your organizations, how are you guys adjusting to working remotely? Because one of the things that I have found is that we're not all working from home. Like, that's not real, because I'm literally on my little laptop in my bedroom. Like, this is not a work from home space. We're trying to navigate life during a crisis right now at home while managing everything else. So I don't know, Chelsea, do you want to go first and tell us how the adjustment's been going?
Sure, absolutely. So it's definitely adjustment. I'm in the same boat as you. I'm in my parents' home, my childhood bedroom. So it's definitely a different situation than if I was at my desk with, two 22-inch monitors and, I'm getting interruptions from my family versus my employees, which is definitely a change of pace. There's also, the expectation of, oh, you're back home. So there's things that you can help out with, but also sure, I can balance things that everybody needs help with, but also, I have to be responsible for the work and the employees that I'm servicing day to day. So what's been most important to me is definitely, making sure that I have a comfortable space that helps me focus. And sometimes when my concentration isn't as strong as I'd like it to be, I need a change of scenery. So I try and reserve, if you will, a place in my home where I can say, hey, from this time to this time today, can I take the parents' office away from them? That didn't work out for me today, but no worries. So it's all about, similar to Lauren's day to day, it's change, it's adjustment, it's understanding that not everything is going to go your way. And I think, throughout career, I've learned that lesson in so many different ways. So this is just another example that there's always going to be challenges and distractions, and you have to keep yourself in the best mindset possible. So whether that means making sure I'm sticking to my typical work schedule of work, getting up at the same time as I usually would, working out, finding a time to take a walk and get outside during the day. It's all about mental stability. And I think just honestly realizing that we're all human and we're all in the same boat. So whether that's dealing with my internal HR team and, remembering the human factor, or, being very honest and transparent and saying, today's a really great day, but, the rain can really get me down, and sunny days, I'm like, I wish I could get outside. So it's all about being human, and it's all about adjusting. But we're very lucky in Brooklyn that our office was very much, or each individual was set up to basically be remote prior to this whole situation happening. So ever since we moved to our new headquarters, nobody had phones at their desks. We had an application called Fuse on our computers that was basically our phones, our instant messaging platform, and our video conferencing. So it was really just grab everything you need from your desk and bring it home with you, and communicating with IT to make sure that we had user manuals and anything that employees really needed to make the transition. And if that means purchasing monitors so that you can have more than just a computer or a laptop in your space, do that. Whatever you need to do to be comfortable. So it's the support and the human factor, really.
That's awesome. I have to look into Fuse. That sounds like a really cool.
Yeah, it's like Slack, but not as fancy.
Nice. Awesome. Ryan, what about you guys, and you personally and MSG?
Yeah, so personally, so I live in Manhattan, but decided to, after probably about 2 weeks ago, left the city, and I'm now in Greenwood Lake, which is about an hour outside the city. And so I'm now in a rental cabin. So the decor behind me, that's not mine. I'm in this room with all this stuff that is, it's kind of weird, actually. It feels a little sort of out of place. But, I think like anything, we're humans and we adapt and we figure things out and we find ways to kind of work with what you got. And so that's been sort of the mindset from a work perspective as well, right? Like we had to quickly do a 180, and we are not a work from home company. So we had to quickly figure out what that means for us and what does that look like. And so there was a lot of kind of building up to it. But once it all sort of happened and we were then officially working from home, we did a lot to make sure, to Chelsea's point, like made sure that we had access to the tools that we needed to be successful and to be functionable. And it's been really interesting because they've done a lot of sort of behind the scenes, research on how much we're utilizing Zoom and how much are we using these different features. And we're finding that we can actually be effective and maybe even more effective than working in the office. Just due to the nature of our kind of work life situations, right? And so it's now opened up the conversation of like, okay, wow, so we can work remotely and get stuff done and still be really productive. What does this look like moving forward for us as a company? I think it's going to open up conversations in regards to the flexibility to work from home, and I think it's opening up kind of a new way of relooking at how we can function and operate at the same pace that we were doing before, but in sort of a new way, which I think is a really interesting thing. And I think a lot of companies are seeing that as well, right? I think there's a lot of conversations now being had about the physical work environments. And I've read some articles about, the open floor plans where you see everyone just kind of grabs an open desk space, but they're all working really closely with one another. I think there's a lot of companies are starting to reevaluate that and kind of go, is that an effective approach? And in this COVID-19 world, is that going to be a healthy, safe approach moving forward? So I think you're starting to see companies are going to start to sort of recalibrate, regroup, rethink about how they operate from a business perspective. And I know from, MSG's perspective, we're looking at that right now, right? When we do get back to a place where we are transitioning back into the office, we're thinking about things like elevator usage. How many people are going to be in an elevator? Are there going to be certain elevators designated to certain floors so that you're not having to stop on multiple floors? Really sort of recalibrating our day-to-day operations. And I think we're all going to have to take that on as the next chapter of this unique time in history, is looking back and looking forward as to like, okay, what will this look like in the next round of this uniqueness? And so time will tell, but I just think we all have to be kind of open to, what comes our way, and adapt to all these circumstances, adapt to living in a random cabin that I don't know anything about.
I love that. You're so adventurous.
It was kind of not by choice. My brother and his wife got it, and I was like, great, I'll come with you.
Yeah, we're quarantining together. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. That's awesome. I think you bring up a really good point too about we weren't an office that was meant to work from home, and that wasn't the organizational structure, or what the mission and what you believe in. And we're kind of the same way. I'm sure, and I know that's why a lot of our students, it was such a hard just like transition that wasn't one. It just all of a sudden was like, okay, you're not coming back, or we're not doing this. So we've all had to adapt to, this is our meeting schedule, and you can't just drop in our office, and you have to be more efficient almost in planning your day or your time. And so that's interesting. I love that it's been a positive thing that might give you maybe some leverage to work from a cabin down the road.
You never know. Absolutely.
You never know. That's great. Lauren, what about you? How's it going?
So talking about the open floor plan is very much how my office experience has been. So I don't quite know what that means yet for going back to normal, but what is normal at this point, right? So for me, from personal perspective, have grabbed my laptop, working from home. I miss my monitors. That's a real thing. But I've kind of just set up for myself, like, what is my new normal here going to look like? I try to keep to like a 9 to 5-ish, 9 to 6. I don't wake up quite as early as I used to when I was taking the train into Boston. But I am trying to keep some sort of normal hours, have my own workspace, which is nice. But there's days that I wake up and I just don't have it yet. So knowing that with my team and building out what's going to be normal for our team, that I have the flexibility to say, hey, if I log on a little bit later today, maybe I'll stay a little bit later, or, I'll pick up things again tomorrow. So I think that's a nice flexibility that I've had now that I might not necessarily have had in the office if I was beholden to the train schedule. So I think that also is paired with trying to find the appreciative moments of what's happening, because this is not typical for any of us. So trying to not be so hard on myself, that this is unique, and that giving myself that grace of it's okay if I don't have it some days. I've read this really great HBR article about, I wish I could remember the name of it if I'm going to quote HBR, but it was something to do with this time that we're experiencing a bit of grief. Grieving what used to be normal, grieving that, you used to be on campus, and what maybe you had anticipated the rest of your year at Syracuse looking like, or your interview processes and job prospects moving forward, that like it's okay to take a little bit of time and recognize that you are potentially in the grieving process of what's happening. Not to bring you down, I mean that as a really positive thing. Look up the article. It was really helpful for me.
I read it too.
Yeah?
And I posted it. Yes.
Oh, good.
It's a good article. It made me feel better.
Yes, I love that you also read it and posted it. Everyone read it.
No, that's great. Well, you didn't bring me down. I think it does
Great.
help everybody recognize that, yeah, we're all going through this and we grieve differently. So,
Absolutely.
Chelsea and Ryan, this question's specific for you. Ryan, first, how has the hiring side been affected by the pandemic? Primarily because I know you do student associate programs specifically. So was everything set for summer, or did the pandemic what's the hiring process been like for you at this point? And then I'll go over to Chelsea.
Yeah, it's a good question. So we are, truthfully, we're still evaluating kind of how we are going to move forward with this. We are looking at creative ways of being able to run a program, potentially virtually. And what does that mean exactly, right? Like one of the things I've been working on today was looking at orientation. And orientation always happens on that first day with all of our students. Well, realistically, we can't have 70 students all together in the same room, right? That's just not going to happen at this point. So evaluating what are our best approaches as we move forward with things. So yeah, we're still kind of fleshing it out and making sure that we've got, we're making the right decision based off of the resources that we have and how things are going to operate. But it goes the same with that mindset of, we do a lot of programming with the students once they join us, a lot of extracurricular activities, social events, that type of thing. And it's kind of put a complete halt on like, wait a minute, we can't have a speaker series in person because of these concerns, right? So it's getting us to be creative with how we are navigating through it in a lot of ways. And so it requires you to kind of think a little bit differently and more creatively. And I think that's a really good thing. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we're at in sort of the mold of everything as we move forward, is how to be more efficient, creative, and mindful with the circumstances that we're in.
That's great. And Chelsea, has your approach to hiring changed since everything's happened? I know it seems like it's been it's been a little over a month, but I feel like it's been a long time. So has your approach changed at all, or what's going on?
Yeah, the approach has changed a bit. In terms of, general hiring for full-time positions, it's completely at a halt. Unless it's for key critical positions that are going to help us throughout this process. So, when it comes to marketing and when it comes to analytics and performance of those areas, we have a really unique opportunity, and so do, all other organizations, to engage with audiences, customers, future employees in a lot of different ways. So those are the areas that we're focusing on for full time. In terms of our internship, we've basically gone from, we usually do 3 semesters a year. We bring on about 90 people total a year. So for the summer, we usually have 30 to 40. And this summer, we've just decided to move forward with, again, those key critical areas of the business. So we are only bringing on 10 people this summer, which is a huge shock, to someone like myself who puts everything into the internship and really providing opportunities for students. So it's definitely going to be a change, but we've set up students who are joining us with remote access. We offer a academic credit-based internship, which some of you Syracuse students who might have joined us in the past would know. So having conversations around regulations, typically, academic credit internships, you can't offer remote working because it's supposed to be on-site experiential time with the organization. So communicating with universities, understanding or having open conversations to say with them, we still want to provide students the experience, especially during this time, which is so eye-opening for everybody, especially someone, younger in their career and learning about what you could potentially face in the workforce. So we're really happy that we're able to have that relationship with our schools to say, you know what we typically do, and we're going to try our best to, you know, like Ryan said, do speaker series that we know the interns love so much, as well as myself. To do those still remotely, similar to this, you know, we can still learn from each other and gain knowledge during this time. So it's smaller, it's different, it's providing equipment and, you know, services and tools to the students during that time. But it's also providing us with a really great opportunity to look at our program as a whole. And since we will have a smaller class, what does that look like for our internship moving forward? Does that mean we move to more of a seasonal program? Does that mean we move to more of a, you know, associates type program that you would see at the league, where you're rotating a smaller amount of people within the organization and hopefully guaranteeing that those areas need to hire someone after their experience? So it's been a real opportunity to be creative, which, you know, in an HR role, you don't always get to do. It's definitely, you know, technical in nature. So it's been great to use the other side of the brain, and, you know, hopefully provide just as great of an opportunity to our students.
That's refreshing too, because on our end, like you had mentioned, those on-site experiences are like the #1 priority academically. And we're on our end trying to get creative, and we've created contingency plans too, because we too are obviously the ones sending you the students, so we get it. That's Lauren, what, especially now that you're focusing on the technology side in your current role, what professional skills could students be working on or building on now, since there might be a little bit more downtime or different downtime, but now that we're navigating this virtual world, what should they be focusing on to stay ahead of the game?
Yeah, I think personally, I don't think too much changes individually. I think it's focusing on a lot of the same things. You might just be doing some different work than anticipated. So I think things to focus on are things like, what are the things you want to do, you want to build on? In preparation for today, I took a look at Teamwork Online to see some types of jobs that were posted. So I was thinking about, for myself, having made this transition from sports and athletics to corporate, and the skill sets that have brought me through, or that I've built upon. So when I was doing my research today, I was looking at jobs that might be available with teams and seeing how you might build those skills outside of sports. So for example, I saw a role, I think it was some sort of marketing with the Kings. And one of the skills that they were looking for, so if you're looking under the qualifications, was something along the lines of email marketing. And so I did a Google search for email marketing and put in the keyword jobs and looked at jobs that came up that you would build that skill set for email marketing, so that it was not necessarily listed as a prior skill set that you would need, but one that you would build in that job, so that when the job market becomes a little bit better for sports, when sports kind of starts being sports again, you might be better positioned for a role like that in the future. That's like, I think, the advice I would have hoped for around this time if I were sitting in your virtual seat. So thinking about what are the things that you can develop that might better position you to be in those jobs that you want in the future.
No, that's great. It's always continue learning, utilize the resources, especially students. If you're still an enrolled student currently, you have free access through your student, tuition and what you're paying for. So utilizing all of those free applications to continue to hone some skill sets. So I like your reverse research approach.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I wouldn't have thought of that. I think that's clever. These are for all of you. So I don't know if anybody has any particulars about, you know, in our professional development class that we require our sport analytics and sport management students to take, we require digital interviews as an assignment. And this year we had to make 2 assignments, digital interviews, because the last one used to be in person. What advice do you have for these digital interviews? Because this is probably going to be your first meeting and first impression of someone, you know, moving forward for the foreseeable future.
One thing I would say is when you're conducting a digital interview, 2 things, 3 things actually. One is make sure you have strong Wi-Fi, right? That's an important piece. Make sure that you're set up and you're ready and on that front so that you don't have to worry about that being an issue. The second thing is find a quiet spot in your house, right? Find a spot where you're not gonna have any interruptions. Maybe you set the tone with your roommates, family members, whomever. Hey, I got this interview. Do you mind just keeping it down? That kind of thing. Because you don't want that to be something that's going to throw you off in the interview and maybe throw off the interviewer. And then lastly, I would also say when it comes to the physical space, make sure, and I feel kind of silly mentioning this, but be mindful of what does the background look like. And I'm saying that as I'm speaking in, as we know, this random space that I'm not familiar with. But I would be really cognitive of that, right? Because we've had interviews in the past where, not anything recently, but where maybe a student was doing an interview and you could see like, you know, their collection of adult beverage bottles in the background, or you can see their bed, or whatever the case may be. Just be mindful of what your surroundings look like. And does it look like you're in kind of a professional sort of environment in that sense, right? So in some cases, hiring managers have come back and they were like, oh, it's kind of weird. I could see all the thing, and it distracted the interviewer from really getting to know the candidate because they were too distracted by everything else that was going on, right? So just make a point to, you know, test run it, make sure that, you know, from a visual perspective, everything looks good. From an audio perspective, you're on point. I think those are kind of some of the initial things that come to mind when moving more into digital interviewing.
That's great. Do either of you, Lauren or Chelsea, have anything to add?
Sure. I'd like to add a piece on video interviews too, because there's obviously, you know, a face-to-face live like this that I think, you know, Ryan, you know, brings up all of the most important pieces and things that you might not think of right away. But there's, and you would prepare for a face-to-face person interview the same way you would for a digital live interview, but video interviews are something that are becoming really prevalent now. I know they've always been something I've utilized, but now you see them popping up all over the place. So for those of you who don't know or haven't experienced it, it's a pre-recorded interview. So if I was your interviewer, I would pre-record myself asking a handful of questions to you where I'm not live there, but you're responding with a video of yourself. So some behind the scenes knowledge that I would love to share is that a lot of these platforms give the interviewers a ton of analytics even before they watch your video. So number one, it's what time did you do the interview? So I've seen people complete the interviews at 3 a.m. when they couldn't sleep, right? And then I see, you know, not the best versions of themselves because they should be getting a restful sleep before their interview. Also being mindful of the angle of your camera. Unfortunately, again, I've seen people put their computer down on the floor while they're sitting on their bed, and that doesn't make for such a nice visual or understanding of who you are as a candidate. So that's really helpful. And then, you know, for those types of interviews, just like an in-person or a, you know, digital interview, you have to practice the art of anticipation. Anticipate what kinds of questions the interviewer might ask you. So it's not just, tell me about yourself and tell me about a challenging time where you had to, come out with a win. Look at the job description, to Laura's point, see, what the qualifications are and what examples you have to answer questions about what the job really needs you to do outside of just being like, oh, I really want to work for this company. It's how can you add value in taking on that position. So do your, prep, write down multiple examples for, multiple areas of that job description, and make sure again to, be you and, share things about yourself that make you unique, which adds a little extra flavor to your recorded video of yourself.
Those are great. I was about to move it was like too much movement to show you. I know exactly what visual.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've gotten some of those for the assignments. So interesting. That was good insider scoop though. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you have any other tips?
Nothing really additional on top of that. Just, I could think the obvious, like, look nice from the shoulders up. Like, just remember it's video. Like, just pretend like you're going in person and do what you would do if you were going to meet the person live.
I want you all to know I put on shoes today too.
Wow, so professional.
I am dressed from head to toe, so take the lead.
That helps too. Like,
it does. It feels good.
Yeah.
What about right now? How should students and young professionals that are looking for, obviously this is a weird time, but how can students and our, future industry leaders position themselves during this time? Like, should they still be looking for remote opportunities, maybe going outside their comfort zone, or what can they be doing to stand out in your eyes?
I would say keep your eye on the prize, right? Like, eventually things will go back to normal, I hope, whatever normal means, right? I would say, I think this is an important time for you as a student, as a candidate, to not kind of let your guard down and say, well, I'll just wait till this passes. Use this now as a platform to start to build relationships with those key companies that you're interested in. I would encourage you to utilize LinkedIn, reach out to recruiters, reach out to HR representatives, potentially hiring managers, and use it as a platform to really network and get yourself out there. If you do get the opportunity to have a Zoom conversation or a phone conversation, don't necessarily use it as a platform to be like, hey, when's your internship program starting up again? But really use it as an opportunity to gain inside perspective about the company. Tell me about what's the future of your company. What are they doing? Love to hear more about your role, those types of things. And part of that as a student is you're starting to put your name out there, right? And so when those opportunities do come up, when things are back in full swing, you could apply and be like, hey, remember me? We spoke a while back. Would love to pursue this opportunity with you. And you've already done the groundwork of putting yourself out there and making those professional connections. I'm speaking for myself. I can't speak to the other panelists or other companies in general, but I'm finding right now is a really key time for students to be reaching out to ask to have those informational phone conversations. And I think people are receptive to it because there's not a whole lot of hiring going on. Recruiters are utilizing this as a time to have those informational calls, right? And connect with folks. And so that when they are ready to hire again, they've got people lined up that they think could be a really good fit. So again, I can't speak to everyone because not everyone's in that same business mind space. But I would say to all the students, I'm like, use this as a time to start to kind of grease those wheels now for future opportunities.
That's awesome. Lauren, what about you?
Yeah, I'd agree. I can't speak from the industry perspective since I'm not on the recruiting side of things. But from networking, I mean, we have nothing but time. So it's a great time to connect with people. People, I imagine, are as starved as I am for human connection. Though, you know, I have my husband, but, you know, other people.
I understand.
Yeah. So from the Syracuse alum perspective, when reaching out, I think one hook, I'll bring you back to my sales days. What's in it for the person that you're reaching out to? So would love to talk with you about your, you know, specific thing with your company or your experience, and tell you about some things that are happening on our new campus or new with sport management, because I think everyone's a little curious about what's happening at the university now that we're in this new digital world. So that's how you hook the people for the conversation. But it's helpful to offer something back when you're asking for their time and giving something back for their time. And hop on, if I don't know if anyone else uses things like edX and Coursera. They're free, mostly free. There's some you could pay for certifications, but they're free-ish platforms that you can just take classes and develop new skills. So from the development perspective, just good places to continue to grow if you, you know, to build out certain areas.
That's helpful. I love that. And I always tell students, you know, especially a cold reach out, nobody owes you anything. So I love that you are creating that, like, be strategic, add value to the entire conversation. I think that's great.
Yeah, just calling to tell you about some things we have going on with the Bruins. Like, no, I'm not. I'm calling to sell you something.
I love it. That's great. Chelsea, anything you want to add?
Sure. So similarly to Lauren with Coursera, you know, our company is using Coursera right now as, you know, a great opportunity to have employees engage in areas that they're interested in technically learning as new items in their toolbox. But separately to that, I actually personally just signed up for LinkedIn Learning. They offer a free 30 days. So, you know, just put a reminder in the calendar, like cancel on the 30-day if I don't want to move forward. But there's so much knowledge, obviously, as most of you probably know, on the LinkedIn platform, and it caters to different learning styles too. So there's videos, there's articles, you know, different mediums that you can explore. I think in addition to that, companies are also getting really creative in terms of how they're engaging with you know, active candidates, but maybe there aren't jobs open. So I can say, at least for us in Brooklyn, and I know the NBA has this week actually shared with the rest of the teams about a platform called Beamery that we are just about to push out live probably next week. So this is a CRM platform. So it's a client relationship manager, or for us, a candidate relationship manager, where we are going to put it on the bottom of our careers page, and it will have a call to action button that basically says, don't see a job here that you're interested in or looking to learn about other jobs within the company, share your resume, share your LinkedIn profile, your GitHub profile, you know, whatever website you might have information about yourself on. And then we as recruiters can start interacting with, you know, active candidates even while we're not hiring, to build pools and pipelines of candidates that are, you know, great, but now's not the right time. The NBA does it also. They are well into using the platform and have about, I think, 1,000 or so candidates that they speak to regularly. So, you know, if you're interested in opportunities with the NBA or, you know, the team within the NBA that recruits for the other teams and provides candidates, definitely engage with them because they will reach out and interview you to have you in this pool that then all of the other NBA teams have access to. The last thing I will say is keep an open mind. You know, again, for those of you 2020 graduates who are a little bit nervous about what the job market looks like. This is not the first time, that this has happened in the job market, and those who graduated in 08, 09 have jobs. So it might have taken them, exactly. So it might have taken them a little bit longer than they would have anticipated, but it all worked out in the end. So, like myself and Ryan, who did not start in sports, but wanted to get into it, and like Lauren, who is in sports, but was in sports and isn't now, your career is going to be very, very long. So take the opportunity now to look at jobs in areas that are really needed. Healthcare, technology, etc., where you can learn skills on the job that are transferable into other markets. So like myself, it was great to move into HR because I knew almost every single industry needs an HR department. So I could be in entertainment, I could be in healthcare, and there's still needs for me. So definitely be open to opportunities that can help you in the future.
Oh, those are good. I have 2 questions left. We have very short time, but I want the first one's really quick. Ryan and Chelsea, do you take more value and ownership in the resume or the cover letter, or for Ryan, that short essay? What's more valuable, or both valuable? Hit me.
So I think first and foremost, I typically read cover letters only when the resume doesn't really make sense, or I don't know why somebody is applying for this job and how it relates to the skills that we're looking for. So I would prefer to see a really well executed resume. And I know that's difficult because I'm sure my perspective and Ryan's perspective and Nicole and Lauren, whoever looks at a resume has different pet peeves of what they like to see and what they don't. So I'd rather see, instead of an objective at the top of your resume, a little brand statement about who you are as a person, the person behind the resume. And you're telling me about what you've accomplished and how you've added value in an organization. So if I don't see a lot of those things, that's when I go to the cover letter and I'm like, what are you looking for? So.
Love it.
Yeah, I would actually echo that same message. For us, it's all about the resume. You really want to add the substance to the resume. That's going to be really important. I want to know what you're doing outside of the classroom setting. Are you involved on campus? What sort of leadership opportunities are you connected with? Are you involved with organizations that are within the industry that you're interested in, right? And what are those organizations? Those are all important things. Also, if you're working at a part-time job, it's on campus, it's off campus, whatever, add that on there, because sure, it may not have a direct correlation with what you want to do long-term. You're actually developing a lot of skills, whether you realize it or not. Customer service, time management, conflict resolution, those types of things can pop up. So resume all the way, really sell yourself. It's not a time to be modest. If you've got a high GPA, add it on there. Those are all really important things. I also personally want to see, what is your career path? What are some of the other internship roles that you've done? And is there a commonality in where you see your career going beyond this internship, right? Like kind of where can I read it and go, okay, I get exactly what he or she is looking to do, because they're clearly on a path going towards this certain type of professional goal. So that's what I'd love to see too.
Love it. This is great. It's good ammo to take into professional development class. Lauren, be our last question. Give us a final piece of advice for our students and young professionals as they navigate this uncertain time. Last piece of advice, because I know, Chelsea, you just gave a lot of really good ones, and so did Ryan. So Lauren, leave us with that last bit going into this uncharted territory.
So much pressure.
We've done it before.
I would have loved this webinar in like 2007. So this is wonderful. So my advice would be to not limit yourself, not limit your thinking to one type of job, one industry. Think more broadly about who do I want to be? What do I want to do? and whatever that looks like, whatever color your parachute might be, and thinking about and both the growth, because I know we've talked about that, but really thinking about yourself. What's going to make you happy and motivated and want to wake up to work every day? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the place or the industry or the particular company you're going to, but what's going to really make you thrive day to day. It's a great time to think about that. I know I do too. Use some of this quiet time to really think about me, because you're number one, right? You are.
It's so true. You did a great job.
Thank you.
No, thank you all. I want to thank Lauren, Ryan, and Chelsea for donating their time today and being with us and literally giving such great information. And I want to thank Ryan and Ben and Evan, not just for having me host, but these young professionals, they're hungry. So if you have the energy to host, a major conference and unfortunately it was canceled, but now we're doing it virtually. I think that if you all continue as students and young professionals to have that energy, you're going to go far. So thank you all for being here. Guys, I don't know if you have an ending or this is it. I don't know if Ryan's coming back or not, to be honest. Is he here? Oh, it's just me. Evan told me it's me. Good. Well, so I'm going to sign off then with that. Thank you again for being here. It is Friday. So it's time to enjoy your weekend. But thank you all so much. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. And thank you to everyone who joined, and be brave out there. Be bold.
Love it.
Thank you, everyone. Good talking with you all, and be kind to yourself. These are weird times. We all have to be nice to ourselves. It's very important.
True.
Amen.
Can't wait to see you all in person.
Yes. And thanks for the human interaction today.
It was so great.
Awesome. Well, take care, everybody, and tune in next week for the next edition of SSBC, their virtual conference. Awesome. Thanks, team. Bye.
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 Bye.